Hi everyone. In this video we'll be looking at the innkeeper and the guest. So we'll be looking at the duties of an innkeeper, the rights of an innkeeper, and reasons why an innkeeper might end up ejecting you as a guest out of the hotel premise. So to begin with, we need to know the definition of an innkeeper. Now when we say an innkeeper, this is simply an owner. So this can be an owner, operator, or manager. An owner meaning he or she owns the premise and the hotel establishment. Operator, or rather, that is the person that is employed, either a housekeeping person, chef, or a waiter. And then the manager, of course, has to be employed or may end up owning that particular premise. So you have got rights of an innkeeper. As an innkeeper, you have got some basic rights. Now remember, as we said, that the guest is always right. Now there are times that the innkeeper will end up being right and not the guest. So number one, as an innkeeper, you have the right to deny service at certain situations, which we'll be looking at later. As an innkeeper, you have to accept in writing liability of a guest, meaning if the guest checks in, they have to produce proof of a credit card. Now that is a valid credit card for you to be able to know that, of course, this guest is able to pay. Now when we look at a guest or someone who checks into a hotel, he or she has to be willing and ready to pay the sum of the money that is quoted to them for them to be able to really stay in that hotel and pay that room. Remember, we have got cases whereby people check in into hotels and they say that they'll be there for 2 weeks. Remember, this is someone that has got no money. So after finishing their activities within 3 or 4 days, they start living with their clothes on a daily basis. So at the end of 2 weeks, you'll find the room empty, minus belongings, meaning the suitcase is there, but the person is not there. Now this is very, very common in many hotels. So you have to be really careful, because now why do people end up living minus paying? When people bring their keys down to the front desk for cleaning, routine cleaning, they say that they're going out to do their duties, of course, but then you find that they're living with their personal belongings on a daily basis. So as a front office person, you have to be really key when it comes to guests. A guest has to pay an initial installment or pay after a certain period of time, but then you don't let them stay for like 2 weeks before you ask for any money. Hope you understand that. Now, an innkeeper is likely to deny service to a guest due to the following reasons. Number one, if the person is engaged in disorderly conduct or activities. Maybe this is someone in the rooms and then they come very late and they're drunk and then they are making so much noise in the hallways. So you have a right as an innkeeper to really eject this person out. Now you have to do this in an orderly manner. You don't just eject someone out. You have to brief them and let them know, sit them down, that they are kind of making the other guests a bit uncomfortable. And then you can also deny service as an innkeeper when a guest comes in with a lot of pests, maybe 8 dogs. Remember, these are dogs that are going to bark along the hallways, and there are those that are sleeping, there are those that are unwell and they need some peaceful time. And then you can also refuse service when a guest does not have money, as we have said earlier on. Now next we move on to identification of a guest. Now the first one was the rights, so the first one was rights of an innkeeper. Number 2, we look at identification. As an innkeeper, you have to be really careful of the people that you bring on board. In as much as we want money, we have to really check on who gets where, because you can't say that you're having minors or 13-year-olds, a group of 13-year-olds that are coming to check in. Let's say 10 of them. So where did they get this money? Whom are they going to spend time with? So you really have to be keen on checking in of guests and identification. So when a guest comes in, what do you do? Now every guest of the hotel may be required by the innkeeper to produce a valid identification. Now in Kenya, the only valid identification is of course your ID card. If you are an international guest, now that becomes your passport. So this clearly shows that you are of age and you're able to really think on your own. So when we take guests in, we have to check on their photograph against the ID, and then we have to check on the name. So we check on the identification, we check on the photo of the person, we take the name, we take the age of the guest, and then whether residential or not. Now if the guest is a minor, now the innkeeper may also require a parent or a guardian. Now if the minor says that my mom is somewhere along coming in, you have to wait for the parent for you to be able to let this guest in. Lastly, we look at ejection of a guest. So reasons why you might end up ejecting a guest. So number 1 was right, number 2 identification, and then number 3 ejection. Now what might prompt you to really make your guest leave the hotel room? This is very, very difficult for you as an innkeeper, because remember, in the long run, this guest is really likely to give you a thumbs down or a 2-star, meaning he or she will suggest to others that your hotel establishment is not the best place to be. So there are circumstances that may really force us to really move this person out. Number 1, non-payment 2 weeks down the line. Now this is a person that is to stay for 1 month. 2 weeks down the line, there has been no installment in terms of money. So this is a red signal that you're really forced to bring this person out. Remember, they drink and they eat on a daily basis. There are those people who come on a casual basis and are cleaning their rooms, and then they need some little bit of payment on their side. So if the guest doesn't bring in any money, it becomes a little bit like a hindrance. Now, as I had said earlier, under the rights, now still number 2, a person who engages in disorderly conduct. You might be forced to eject this person out. Maybe this is a person that is maybe a male person that is bringing trouble with the female counterparts across the hallways. So if such an incident is reported, of course you have to eject this person out, and as we have said, you have to do it in an orderly manner. You don't cause chaos or make this person really bring so much trouble. You have to bring them down, sit them and talk to them and give them the reasons why you can't have them on board within that given premise. And then we have got if the person is engaging in unlawful conduct, maybe someone has checked into a room, but then they're drug dealers or they're having firearms within that room. So many things happens nowadays. Maybe it's a terrorist meeting another terrorist. So if you happen to have this, remember with CCTVs, we can't have CCTVs in the room. With that, you'll be kind of intruding in the privacy of the guest. We can only have the CCTVs along the hallway and the entrance. So you really have to be keen on that. And then if the person is not registered within that hotel setup, now you find someone in the rooms, but then they have no allocation for the room. So what is this person doing over here? So you really have to check on such people. We call them idlers, who are just going through the hotel setup. And then now the person has exceeded the limitation for guest room occupancy. Now if the room takes 4, this is a person that has brought in 6 people. Now this room can only take 3 people, but not 6. If they exceed, maybe this is a person that has invited many friends. So you can simply do away with such a person. And then if the person has obtained the accommodation under false pretense, under wrong documentation, you say you're Brenda, but then you're Alpha Dohu. So if you come in with a wrong documentation or false pretense, you're likely to move out. And then the last thing, now if the person is a minor and not under supervision, maybe this room was obtained under false pretense by someone else who let this other person in. So if the person ends up being a minor after your supervision, you are likely to eject them out. So that's all for innkeeper and the guest. So we were to look at the definition of an innkeeper, the rights of an innkeeper, identification of a guest, or rather, and lastly, ejection of a guest by an innkeeper. So have a wonderful time.